The apartment was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the sterile kind that hums with absence. The fridge buzzed. The wall clock ticked in sync with my pulse, which was slow, too slow for what had just happened. I had been reading through vendor contracts when my phone vibrated on the counter. I glanced, more out of habit than urgency. Then I read the message. Don't call or come over. We're done. There was no name attached. There didn't need to be. I didn't blink. I didn't speak. I just stared at the screen as the sentence cut through whatever thread was left between me and my mother. Then, calmly, mechanically, I typed, "Got it. Send." I placed the phone face down on the counter like it might leak something poisonous. My breath came short. My hands didn't tremble, but the cold had crept from the glass of the fridge and settled in my chest. I always knew this day would come. I just didn't expect it to be delivered like junk mail. The words didn't shock me. They confirmed something I had buried for years. And somehow, that made it worse. I walked to the kitchen and turned the tap. Water poured out in a stream that didn't waver, unlike my grip. I held the glass still, watching the line rise until it spilled over. I thought of her voice then, not the one from last month's guilt-laced voicemail or the clipped tone from Thanksgiving. I remembered the sound from years back. I was 8, curled on my bed after being called names at school. She had sat beside me, wrapped me in her arms, and whispered, "I will always be on your side." It was the last time she ever was. That memory, that warm breath against my ear, was now a lie wrapped in comfort. I sipped the water, barely tasting it. My stomach turned as another voice took over. My father's, booming across the dinner table when I told them I was leaving the family firm. "You're bringing shame to everything we built." That message wasn't a rupture. It was a full stop on a sentence they started writing years ago. I walked back to my laptop and opened my finance app. The screen lit up with lines of transaction history. There it was, $2,950, auto-deducted each month to the family account. Like clockwork, like rent. No thank yous, no check-ins, just the occasional thumbs-up emoji from Maureen. Not even words. I was never a daughter. I was an ATM with a heartbeat. Blood doesn't make you family. Value does. And I just lost mine. I considered canceling the payment. I hovered over the button. But I didn't click it. Not yet. Something sharper had started to form. I opened my inbox, scanning through old threads. Then I saw it. A forwarded email from Talia Knox, my sister-in-law. She had sent it by accident 2 months ago. A spreadsheet. Every family member's expenses were listed. In mine? Solène's support, $2,950 per month, fixed income stream. Fixed income stream. That's what I was to them. I closed the tab. My face remained unreadable, but inside, something cracked. Then I remembered a call from 3 weeks ago. "Briggs, my brother. Can you send an extra $5,000? Dad's bills are piling up." I wired it that afternoon. The next day, he posted pictures from a wine tasting in Paris. I reopened the finance app, scrolling to credit liabilities. And there it was, my name listed as guarantor on a loan. A loan I never signed for. For the family business. My name, used without permission. They didn't just bleed me dry. They forged the knife. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse. I walked over to the cabinet, grabbed the legal pad I kept for grocery lists, and sat on the floor. They were never my home. Just my obligation. I wrote at the top, Phase 1, except it's over. Below that, I began a list, dates, amounts, notes. I opened voice memos and dictated what I remembered. Conversations, figures, moments I had overlooked. This wasn't about revenge. This was record keeping. For me. My pen scratched steadily. Line by line, lie by lie, I laid it out. By midnight, I stopped being their daughter. I became their reckoning. Morning came gray and slow, the kind of light that doesn't feel like beginning but continuation. I woke up before my alarm, the quiet in my chest louder than anything outside. No dreams, just the weight of last night curling in my gut like bad weather. I moved through the apartment like clockwork, black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Control in a cup. The smell was grounding, almost nostalgic, but not enough to mask what I knew I had to face. I opened my laptop. Again. This time not out of habit. This time with purpose. My finance dashboard loaded with a small stutter, like even the screen hesitated. There it was. Again. $2,950 Vail Holdings support, processed November 1st, 6:01 a.m. Every first of the month. Without fail. Without question. Like a subscription I forgot to cancel. I traced the pattern backward. Each transaction nested between calls from Maureen, "Just a little help, honey." Briggs exaggerating car trouble or some urgent thing that always seemed to resolve itself as soon as I sent money. None of them asked if I could afford it. They just assumed, like it was part of my job description, daughter, provider, silent partner. This wasn't generosity. This was taxation. I clicked deeper. Cross-referenced statements. My fingers moved fast, but my heart stayed slow. And then I found it. Buried in my all mail folder, unread. An old email from Talia, an attachment. No subject line. Just, "Oops, meant to send to Dad." It was a spreadsheet. Rows and rows of family expenses. Line items labeled like a budget report. Briggs's car lease, covered by Solen. Dad's annual retreat, Solen. Health insurance, Maureen via Solen. My name, not once, always, Solen. Cold, transactional, like an account. One comment caught my eye, highlighted in yellow. Thurston. She owes us. She wouldn't be anything without the Vail name. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just sat there as that sentence reached into my chest and turned off the lights. They hadn't just taken. They had kept score. I took screenshots. Saved everything. I created folders. Labeled years. Subfolders for receipts. Not revenge. Insurance. And I remembered. When I started my company, desperate for capital, I asked them for a loan. They laughed. "You made your bed," Maureen said. I slept on floors that year. Ate ramen twice a day. But I paid them. Every month. I thought about all the times I made excuses for them. They're just under pressure. It's just how they are. I said it to friends. To dates. To colleagues. And worst, myself. When people you love take from you long enough, you start calling it giving. One memory rose like smoke. "Briggs, calling at 11 p.m., emergency," he said. "I need a quick loan. Short term, under your name. Won't affect you." I said yes before I even asked questions. Months later, I found out he defaulted. I paid it, quietly, told myself it was for peace. My name wasn't mine anymore. It was a credit card they all had the number to. Left out on the counter. Swiped without asking. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was systematic. I pulled out the legal pad again. Wrote on the top line, "Evidence of coerced financial dependency 7 years." I listed it all. Dates, notes, timestamps. Next page. "If love is debt," I wrote, "consider this your overdue invoice." I remembered Dad's voice, always lecturing. "Family is business." Another one. "You invest where it pays off." "Well, Dad, your ROI is about to drop to 0. Maureen's voice tried to creep in, soft, sugar-coated. "We only asked because we trust you." But I knew better now. They trusted I wouldn't say no. That's not love. That's leverage. I saved the document under a new name, Reclamation. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a daughter. I felt like a woman doing math. I logged into every financial account. Clicked, Manage Payment. And turned off autopay. No notice. No calls. No explanations. Let them feel the silence. I didn't block anyone. I wanted them to see the message bounce. To hear the voicemail beep with no response. To feel the vacuum where I used to be. I closed my laptop. Pressed my hand against my chest. Breathed in. "Not everything broken needs fixing," I whispered. "Some things need burial." And then it happened. My phone lit up. Thurston. Calling. I let it ring. Because something inside me had finally started to live. The cardboard box sat by the hallway closet like it had been waiting for this night. I didn't even remember bringing it when I moved. Labeled in my own handwriting, "Kitchen, old." I peeled the tape slowly, like I was opening something sacred. Inside, a few tarnished utensils clinked against each other. The one that stopped me was a stainless steel ladle, curved, heavy, familiar. I held it in my hand, and suddenly I wasn't in Boston. I was 8 again, back in that silent kitchen where nothing ever smelled like comfort food. The sound that came first wasn't a voice. It was metal against cast iron. Clatter, scrape, slam. That was the music of my childhood. Not laughter, not bedtime stories, noise that always stopped too quickly, leaving silence hanging like fog over the white tile floors. That kitchen had one window. Always fogged up, always dripping, even when it wasn't cold outside. The heater worked fine, but that house never felt warm. Not once. I turned the ladle in my hand and realized I was gripping it like a weapon. My fingers wrapped tight around the handle, arm flexed, ready. What was I preparing for? Ghosts? Or just the echoes? A dinner table came to mind. I was 10. It was a Tuesday, I think. We sat straight, no elbows, napkins in laps. Thurston lectured about order and a man's name. Maureen nodded without blinking. Briggs snuck smirks at me across the table. My elbow nudged a glass. Water spilled. The strike came before I could apologize. No one flinched. Not even me. Not even Maureen, who turned her head just slightly, as if the side of her face couldn't bear witness. We all just sat there, soaking in it. That was the night I learned something that still echoes. Families don't need to yell to be violent. They just need expectations sharp enough to draw blood when you brush against them. And still, there were whispers of hope. I remembered my 8th birthday. No party, just cake on chipped china. Maureen bent down, tucked my hair behind my ear, and whispered, "When you're older, I'll choose you." It was the closest thing to love I ever got from her. I wore that sentence like a necklace, close to my heart. Believed it, needed to. Years later, I was passing the kitchen and heard her on the phone with Briggs. Laughing, her voice softer than usual. "When you grow up, I'll always be on your side," she said. The words weren't weapons, but they cut all the same. Not betrayal by action, but by repetition. Words reused like old coupons. Handed out to anyone with the same last name. I pulled a sticky note off the fridge. Wrote without thinking. I was never her first choice. Just the safest bet. I pressed it onto the ladle and placed it back in the box. That house in upstate New York had its own language. It was written in closed doors, careful footsteps, and books hidden under the bed. I used to draw on the inside of cereal boxes, pretending I lived in a world where parents asked how your day went. The window in my childhood room fogged up from my breath. I remember thinking even the glass didn't want to see what was inside. Sundays meant church. Perfect dresses, polished shoes, smiles that hurt to hold. And bruises that stayed just beneath the hemline. Once, in 5th grade, I told a teacher that home didn't feel safe. She said, "Don't be dramatic, sweetheart. You'll embarrass your family." From that day forward, I stopped believing in rescue. They taught me how to survive their love. By calling it discipline. Now, grown, I sat on the floor of my apartment, knees pulled in, arms resting across them. I asked a question out loud. How many of us confuse obedience with love? The silence answered me. I thought about Maureen again. Wondered if she ever really had a voice of her own, or if she'd muted herself so long ago, she forgot the sound. I don't know what a healthy mother feels like. I only know what I imagine it could be. No rage tonight, just resignation. I stood up, turned off the hallway light, and headed toward the kitchen. As I passed the counter, my phone buzzed. It wasn't a call. It was a wire transfer confirmation. I hadn't approved anything. Briggs had found another way in. And I was about to shut the last door he could enter through. The first place I called mine smelled like rust and second chances. It sat on the 2nd floor of a duplex with a slanted roof that groaned when it rained. I moved in the week I turned 18. No bed frame, just a mattress I dragged in by myself, wrapped in plastic and grit. The walls were stained yellow like the place had been exhaling cigarette smoke for years. The sink leaked. The radiator clanged like it had opinions. But it was mine. Every mug, every fork, every lamp. I hunted them down in thrift stores and late-night Craigslist exchanges. A table with only 3 legs. I fixed the 4th with a stack of old textbooks. I paid rent in quarters some months. Worked doubles at the diner. Walked home in the snow when gas money meant skipping lunch the next day. And still, I slept. I wasn't poor. I was free. Raise your hand if you've ever had less and still slept better. It took 2 years for me to get out from paycheck to paycheck panic. I started teaching myself to code on a second-hand laptop, sitting cross-legged on that mattress, watching YouTube tutorials with buffering speeds that tested my patience. The idea came when I volunteered at a shelter. I saw women staring blankly at job boards, resumes that hadn't been updated in a decade, fear tucked behind every sentence. I started small, teaching them how to format an email, build a basic landing page. It bombed at first. I botched my first pitch to a local nonprofit. The rejection email said, "We're not sure the population is tech ready." I sold my car to pay for web hosting and skipped Christmas that year. Then Delphine Crane found me. She was retired, gray curls always tucked behind one ear. She used to work for my family as a house manager. I'd barely spoken to her growing up. She reached out via my platform's contact form with a simple message, "I see what you're doing. Let's talk." We met for coffee. She slid a folded check across the table. $5,000. "I always knew the real heir in that house wasn't named Briggs," she said. That was my first investor. Success looked different than I imagined. Lonelier. You can't call your mother when your first app hits 10,000 users if your mother thinks apps are for people who can't hold a real job. When I signed my first $150,000 partnership deal, I was alone in a co-working space with bad coffee and a flickering light. I opened my phone, 53 unread emails. Clients, supporters, random DMs, not one from family. Later that night, I saw the photos. Maureen had hosted Briggs's birthday. A private chef, a champagne tower, string quartet. The cake said, "To our future CEO." I wasn't tagged, not even in the background. Legacy doesn't always follow blood. Sometimes it chases attention. I used to think I wanted success. But what I really wanted was to be seen. I once drafted an email to my parents. Listed every win like a resume, press features, awards, revenue milestones. I even attached a photo of me speaking at a tech summit. I never sent it. Because you can't collect respect from those who are bankrupt in empathy. And if you keep investing in people who only withdraw, you'll go broke. That night, I closed my laptop and scribbled a new mission statement on a napkin, to fund women. Not fix families. Months passed. The platform grew. We expanded into 6 cities. Then I got a letter from a girl in Detroit. Handwritten. She said she used my course to land her first tech job. Enclosed was a Polaroid of her in front of the office. She looked like joy. Later, I was invited to speak at a community college in Ohio. I didn't want to go. I still had stage fright and an aversion to hotel pillows. But I went. Walking through the audience, a woman brushed my arm and whispered, "You remind me of my daughter." She stopped calling me too. Pain echoes. But so does healing. Tell me, who validated you when your family wouldn't? Comment their name below. Let's honor them here. When I returned home, an envelope waited on my desk. Cream-colored, gold-trimmed. From the Vale Family Trust. A strategic legacy meeting. I didn't need a seat at their table anymore. But I showed up anyway, to flip it. The Vale estate hadn't changed. Pristine hedges trimmed like spreadsheets. The driveway perfectly repaved, erasing any tire mark of life that might have once passed through. It was the kind of silence money buys and keeps. The butler opened the door with the same glazed expression I remembered from childhood. He didn't say my name. Just stepped aside like I was a delivery, not a daughter. Inside, the dining room was an art exhibit. Chairs placed like chess pieces. Thurston at the head, of course. Briggs to his right. Maureen, pale and poised, across. My chair, furthest from the head, was clearly intentional. You ever walk into a room and know you were only invited to be outnumbered? I sat anyway. Thurston didn't bother with small talk. "We're restructuring the trust," he began, like he was reading off a quarterly report. "No, how are you?" No acknowledgement of my life outside their spreadsheet. Briggs smirked, elbows on the table. Maureen fiddled with her bracelet, eyes avoiding mine like it might burn her. They wanted my signature. No prior review. No explanation. "Of course," I said, smiling. "Could I get a copy to review first?" Briggs scoffed. Thurston didn't flinch. "We'll walk you through the key points." "That won't be necessary," I replied. I brought my own reader. I tapped my phone. A voice memo began to play, my attorney's voice, clipped and clear. Clause 14.6 effectively removes Solen Maris from all future distribution unless she remains an active trustee by family approval. I stopped it there. You weren't inviting me to the table, I said. You were trying to make me sign away my chair. Don't be dramatic, Thurston snapped. I pushed back my chair. Let's take a recess. I'd like to eat before we continue being insulted. Lunch was a performance. Crystal goblets, seared lamb, too many forks. Maureen passed me the salad like a silent apology, but still didn't speak. Then it started. Some of us stayed loyal, Briggs said, chewing too loud. Building an app isn't the same as building character, Maureen added softly, finally speaking, just not for me. I dabbed my mouth with the napkin, ready to leave, when Talia spoke. We all know who really built something here, she said, low but firm. Everyone froze. Even Briggs blinked. I met her gaze. There it was, recognition. Not approval, but understanding. You ever realize your allies were wearing the same chains, just quieter? Later, Thurston handed me the document. I'll summarize, he said. No, I said, flatly. I'll read. He didn't expect that. They thought I'd come to reclaim a place. I came to expose a transaction. I may not be in your will, I told him. But I am not your fool. Comment if you've ever been gaslit in plain daylight. I stood, lifted my wine glass, untouched, and dropped it onto the center of the table. It shattered like a gavel. You wanted a puppet, not a partner. I turned to Maureen. The last flicker. She lowered her gaze again. Talia mouthed, call me. As I walked out, I told the butler, no need to show me out. I know the way. Sometimes the way out is through. Later that night, my phone lit up. Unknown number. One text. Meet me tomorrow. I know what they're hiding. T. The text came at 2:13 p.m. Meet me at the Iris Cafe, 4:30 p.m. I know what they're hiding. T. I stared at the message, reading it again even though the words hadn't changed. Talia. The last person I expected to break rank. I poured myself a black coffee in silence. No sugar, no cream, just like always. The familiar bitterness grounded me. I didn't trust surprises, but I trusted my instincts to show up anyway. The Iris Cafe was a dimly lit corner spot in downtown Denver, the kind of place that looked like it played more secrets than music. One cracked window, low jazz drifting from unseen speakers. It smelled like scorched beans and regret. Talia was already there, seated in the back. She looked like she hadn't slept, twitchy, eyes flicking toward the door every few seconds. She didn't wave, just nodded. You ever been summoned to someone else's truth and realized you might be the surprise guest? I sat. No small talk. She slid an envelope across the table like it might explode. Inside, spreadsheets, bank statements, a USB drive, and a folded note that read simply, sorry. I opened the folder. My name, my account, withdrawals I never approved, funds rerouted through shell accounts Briggs set up. A voice memo played through the USB. Thurston, muttering, she'll never figure this out. She's too busy playing hero. I didn't flinch. My throat tightened, but my hands were steady. I'm doing this, Talia said, so she stops paying for his bar tabs in Vegas. There was shame in her voice. Real shame. And fear. What would you do, I asked the audience in my head, if the person you trusted most handed you the evidence? The sky outside had started to shift. That strange golden twilight that never quite knows if it's day or night. I walked through Rhino alone after we parted. Cranes above, murals beside me, Denver's version of contradiction. Beautiful and broken at once. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Talia. Tomorrow, I'll bring the full surveillance replay. I stopped walking, heart pulsing like a second step in my chest. Flashback. The sound of keys in the lock at midnight, me at 13, pausing to breathe quieter, avoiding the fights that didn't need volume to hurt. The next evening, in a quiet rental office, she handed me the footage. A hidden camera, recording a family dinner. There he was. Thurston, saying plainly, handle her quietly. We don't need her poking around now. Maureen just nodded. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I just saved the file. When you speak the truth, Talia whispered, they'll call you loud. Who are you trying to quiet in your life right now? Back in my apartment, I shut the door, turned off my phone, and sat by the window. Denver's skyline blinked at me like Morse code. I started categorizing everything: financial abuse, emotional fabrication, exit strategy. I checked my watch. 1:17 a.m. I placed the USB drive into the small safe bolted behind my bookshelf. The sound of the lock clicking felt final. I was done reacting. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. 12 digits. I saw you meet her. Be ready. The estate looked different at night, not softer, just stripped of its illusions. The manicured hedges that once looked alive now seemed like a row of guards standing at attention, ready to report any trespass. I told the gatekeeper I was there to collect forgotten files. He didn't ask questions. People trained by my father rarely did. I parked near the west wing, where the windows faced the long drive. The dining room lights were still on. Voices floated through the open sliver of glass, too quiet to be an argument, too sharp to be casual. Their voices echoed off polished wood, but between words I heard the absence of me. Thurston's tone carried authority like oxygen, effortless and absolute. She'll sign or she'll be excluded permanently. I froze. He said it like weather, predictable, natural, something that couldn't be helped. Maureen didn't answer right away. Just a soft hum, like guilt being ironed out into compliance. I kept my face calm, every instinct screaming to record. My phone slid quietly from my pocket, screen dimmed, audio rolling. Have you ever heard someone decide your fate without you being in the room? I took a slow step back, trying to breathe evenly. Then my heel caught the edge of the doorframe. The smallest sound, a crack of glass. It wasn't loud, just sharp enough to break something invisible. I turned. The window pane had split from the corner, a thin diagonal fracture glinting in the light. Inside, Maureen's reflection shifted slightly, her head turning as if she'd felt a draft. She didn't see me. Then a soft mechanical click, above the door. The small security camera mounted under the eaves rotated toward me, lens blinking red. My pulse steadied, not from fear, from confirmation. They weren't the only ones recording anymore. I broke their silence, I whispered. Now I record theirs. I walked back to the car, shoes silent against the gravel. Denver's skyline appeared miles later, neon bleeding through the fog like bruised light. I drove slower than usual, each red light giving me a moment to replay what I'd captured. Thurston's voice, controlled and venomous. Maureen's sigh, half resignation, half survival. I thought about the nights I'd sat by that same window as a kid, staring at the dark glass, waiting for someone to say, "You belong here." That sentence never came. I used to look through windows for approval. Now I look through them for truth. Have you ever watched a window not reflect someone you hoped to find? When I got home, the air in my apartment felt cleaner. I set my phone on the counter, connected it to my laptop, and transferred the audio. Then the rest followed: camera stills, screenshots, Talia's files. I organized everything into one encrypted folder. Veil files, Phase 1. It wasn't revenge. It was documentation. They wanted a daughter who never noticed, I murmured. I became the daughter who cataloged. The computer fan whirred softly, the city humming outside my window. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown caller. No name. Just 12 digits. The message read, "You thought you saw everything. Wait till you see what's next." It came at 11:52 p.m., one vibration on the desk that cut through the quiet like a blade. "We know what you found. Be ready at midnight." The text glowed in the dark, a single sentence pulsing with menace. My apartment suddenly felt smaller, the air colder, the hum of the HVAC unbearably loud. Every sound carried weight now: the tick of the wall clock, the faint buzz of the fridge, my own pulse echoing back at me. This wasn't business. This was a warning dressed in professionalism. On the screen beside me, Veil files. Phase 1 waited like a sleeping animal, holding the evidence that could shred everything the family built on lies. My finger hovered over the trackpad, then drifted to the phone. I typed one word. Okay. It wasn't consent. It was strategy. Have you ever sat perfectly still while someone scheduled your destruction? At exactly midnight, my laptop pinged. A calendar alert blinked. Veil Holdings Legacy Meeting 12 a.m. I clicked before doubt could speak. The video window opened, and there they were. Thurston in his navy suit, eyes sharp and mouth thinner than ever. Maureen, quiet, pearl necklace glinting under harsh boardroom lighting. Briggs leaned in, smirking, phone in hand, pretending this wasn't theater. Good evening, Thurston began, his voice calm, rehearsed. Our family must present unity. Solen only complicates things. Then came the slide. Stakeholder withdrawal, Solen Maris. A digital erasure of my existence. They were manufacturing a villain. My image in the corner of the screen reflected back at me, muted, small, framed in the light of people who believed they owned the story. Ever watched someone rewrite your life and wonder when you stopped being the author? Thurston continued, his tone dripping in civility. We appreciate all she's done, but independence is not alignment. Translation. Silence or exile. I didn't interrupt. Not yet. I just leaned back, letting their own arrogance fill the room like smoke. Then, movement on Briggs's end. His daughter, maybe 6, wandered into frame in her pajamas, hair messy from sleep. She looked straight at the screen and asked, "Who are you, Aunt Solen?" The room froze. Even the pixels seemed to stop. Her question landed harder than any accusation could. If you were family, you would know me. Maureen's eyes darted away. Thurston adjusted his cufflink, pretending he didn't hear. And Briggs? He smiled like nothing happened. The meeting wrapped in muted chaos, fake smiles, and a sudden disconnection. I stared at the black screen, its reflection fading until only my face remained. Calm. Focused. When did you realize a child's question was the loudest truth you ever heard? I closed the laptop, one hand resting on a folder labeled Phase 2, Release. The night outside was ink dark when I stepped onto my balcony. For the first time in years, I lit a cigarette. The smoke spiraled upward, defiant and deliberate. Inside, the glow of the monitor painted the room an eerie blue. I reopened the files, scrolling through every voice memo, every spreadsheet, every audio clip where their lies breathed through numbers. They wanted silence, I whispered to myself. I chose noise. In the bathroom mirror, I scrawled the same words in lipstick, red, bright, permanent. At 12:12 a.m., I drove across Denver's sleeping streets. The city felt half awake, headlights moving like nervous thoughts. The 24-hour print shop buzzed with neon and loneliness. I fed the printer page after page, transaction records, loan details, transfer histories. The machine spat truth faster than they'd ever admit it. I packaged the prints, slipped in flash drives, sealed them with tape. One envelope addressed to a financial journalist in Chicago. Another to a consumer watchdog. If they went public with their version of me, I'd go public with theirs. When I dropped the packages into the steel box, the sound echoed like a gavel. Back in the car, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. See you at sunrise. We'll talk legacy then. I looked out the windshield at the empty street, the first hint of dawn brushing the horizon. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of their legacy. I was rewriting mine. The first call came at 7:03 p.m., then another. And another. My phone lit up like it was on fire. Thurston. Maureen. Briggs. Then, unknown. Then again. And again. I didn't answer. I sat on the couch in the dark, the glow from the screen bathing my apartment in flickering panic. I let it ring. I let them fill the air with urgency they never had when I needed them. Then the voicemails. 5 of them in under 3 minutes. Red bubble glowing like a siren. I pressed play. Maureen first, sobbing, breathless. This isn't you, baby. Please stop. Please. Briggs, shaky. We can fix this. Just call me back. Please. We're family. Then Wesley, the lawyer. All thorns, no petals. You are in violation of confidentiality clauses. We will pursue legal action if necessary. They taught me to answer the phone. Now I'm teaching them to wait. Have you ever had your phone become the prison of someone else's demands? I flipped the phone face down on the table. It vibrated once more, then silence. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, each movement deliberate. I wasn't running. I was stepping aside. I'd seen the pattern before. When I was silent, they called it loyalty. When I spoke, I was the traitor. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop. I clicked into old financial dashboards, auto payments I used to manage for convenience. Thurston's car lease, Maureen's salon expenses, a Vale legacy foundation that never existed beyond a slush account. All now frozen. Redirected. Erased. Then a voice memo popped up, forwarded from an old thread. Maureen's voice, again. But this time, no performance. Just fury under breath. You're killing the family. You're killing me. I listened twice. Not to feel, but to document. I opened my legal pad and titled the page. List of emotional weapons used against me. When someone tells you you're killing them for choosing yourself, what do you say? I say, let them grieve the version of me they could manipulate. I opened my phone settings, started a contact block list. One by one. Thurston, Maureen, Briggs, Wesley, the estate landline. I silenced them all. No ringtones. No banners. They wanted power by voice. I took it by setting boundaries. Then, a new ping, Talia. A message. Listen to what he said in front of the kid. He didn't just doubt you, he erased you. I didn't respond. Not yet. I read it 3 times. The words settled into my ribs. The apartment was finally quiet. And for the first time, the silence didn't sting. It resonated. Ever waited for the phone to ring, and realized you were waiting for someone you already left behind? I opened a new document and typed one sentence. I will not respond until I rewrite the rules. I closed every tab linked to family finances. Logged out of shared cloud folders. Reset passwords. Then I changed my voicemail greeting, I'm not available. Please leave a message and I'll get back when I'm ready. No apology. No hint of urgency. Freedom isn't loud, it's a door you close. Some hear the click. Some still knock. I dimmed the lights. Let the quiet hold me. Then, just past midnight, my phone buzzed again. A number I didn't recognize, 12 digits long. You're being erased. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. The message sat like ice in my hand. But I didn't flinch. I didn't answer. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. And I knew, tomorrow, they wouldn't be the only ones writing history. I woke before the sun. My apartment was a quiet envelope, Denver still asleep outside my windows. The sky hadn't changed color yet, just that soft, uncertain gray that only lasts a few minutes. I didn't need an alarm. My body knew something had ended. I turned on the laptop. Notifications blinked like tiny escape hatches. Payment declined. Automatic transfer failed. Account closed. I sat up straighter. No panic. Just stillness. For years, I'd managed their lifeline like it was my own. Covered overdrafts, authorized payments, signed off on expenses I never saw again. Now, that faucet was dry. I held their debt. Now they hold emptiness. When you stop giving what was never asked for, how loud does the silence become? I didn't smile. Didn't sip coffee in triumph. I just walked to the window and closed the curtain. Let the silence stay. Back at my desk, I clicked open the folders. Veil files, phase 1. Then the other. Exit strategy. The files sat there, pulsing with unsaid names and hidden dates, bank records, trust documents, screenshots, voicemails. Everything they never thought I'd collect. I dragged them to a secure backup. Then a second cloud. Then a flash drive. One by one, like placing photos into an album you never planned to reopen, but need to exist. Then a ping. News alert. Breaking. Veil Holdings holds emergency session. Auditors confirm internal review pending. I leaned back. Not smug. Just satisfied, like you feel when something inevitable finally happens. They thought I'd beg. I just clicked upload. I grabbed my phone and sent a short message to Marla Quinn, the reporter I trusted. It's time to launch the story. Let's talk timeline. Ever quietly placed a rock in the pond and watched the waves roll without you shouting? I stood, stretched my arms, walked to the balcony. The city blinked slowly beneath me. A cab turned a corner. A jogger stretched on the opposite sidewalk. This was the world I lived in. Not theirs. I remembered the long nights I'd stare at the phone, waiting for someone, anyone, to check in. And the nights I called back and got nothing. Not even voicemail. They'll call when they're ready, I'd whispered once, pressing the phone to my chest. And I won't answer then either. I opened my own contacts. Deleted every Veil name, one by one. Except one. Talia Knox. I kept hers. Added a note. Ally. Then, I opened a new text thread, my own number. Typed and sent. Freedom isn't loud. It's a door you close. I stared at the message for a beat, then set the phone down. I wasn't mourning. I was marking something. Back inside, I flipped on the desk lamp and opened a blank document. Title: Maris Foundation, Boundaries and Financial Independence. First line: to help those who financed their own chains. Then a voice memo, recorded like a promise. I'm not here to fix families. I'm here to unchain people. I enabled two-factor authentication. Set auto-save. Protected the document like I wished someone had protected me when I was younger. Finally, I wrote a note in ink on a sticky square. Placed it right above my monitor. They stopped seeing me. I started seeing them. And just then, the buzzer rang. It was 5:30 a.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the camera feed. Briggs Vale stood in the hallway, looking like sleep hadn't visited him in days. Hands in his pockets. A face that had something to say. The text came at 10:15 a.m. sharp. Can we meet today? I'd like to talk. Mom. I stared at the screen long enough for the light to dim. The message didn't sting, not anymore. It just sat there like a faded receipt, proof of a transaction long overdue. I didn't dress up. No blazer, no jewelry, no makeup. I wore a plain sweater and jeans, hair tied back, and carried a small notebook. If this was closure, I'd come ready to take notes. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. The air smelled of cinnamon and old espresso. I sat near the window, watching the early light sharpen against the pavement. She came 15 minutes late, just as always. Maureen Vale walked in with the same careful posture she used when pretending nothing was wrong. Her eyes were softer, though, and her hand trembled when she lifted her purse strap from her shoulder. We didn't hug. We didn't need to perform. She ordered a caramel latte, I ordered black coffee. The barista called our names, and even that sounded foreign, our shared last name felt like someone else's now. The steam rose, and silence stretched longer than comfort allowed. I broke it. You called because you need something. What is it? She blinked, caught between habit and honesty. Can't a mother just want to talk? I leaned forward slightly. You never just want to talk. Have you ever asked someone why they invited you, and felt the fear tighten before the answer comes? She looked down, tracing a crack in the table with her finger. I was wrong, she said softly. For years I told myself I couldn't protect you, and it cost us both. I didn't interrupt. I opened my notebook and wrote year 0 at the top of a blank page. Then I thought, the meter starts now. She fumbled in her bag, pulling out a crumpled, yellowed piece of paper. I wrote this years ago. I never sent it. The paper shook as she flattened it on the table. The handwriting was unmistakable, neat, deliberate, hers. It said, I'm sorry I didn't choose you. Pain flared behind my ribs, but it didn't break me open. It just confirmed what I already knew. Why now? I asked. She looked away. Because Briggs threatened to expose the family accounts if you didn't stay silent. I was afraid. Fear doesn't excuse betrayal, I said evenly. It defines it. Her eyes filled, and the sound of milk frothing behind the counter filled the space where her words faltered. What happens when the person you trusted asks for forgiveness, and you're the one holding the stopwatch? She reached into her coat pocket this time and slid her phone toward me. There's something else. On the screen was a message draft, one I recognized immediately. It was mine. I release you. I remembered typing it years ago, then never hitting send. You found this? I asked quietly. She nodded. It synced to the family cloud. I never deleted it. I wanted to believe you meant it. I stared at the words. Old ones, unspoken ones. You kept it all this time. I thought maybe someday we could start over, she said. I took a long breath, then finished my coffee in one swallow. It burned, but not like anger, more like finality. Thank you for saying what you needed to say, I told her. But I already said it, to myself. Sometimes forgiveness isn't an action. It's an expiration date you set on someone's hold over you. She looked down, nodded once. I know. I stood. For a moment, I hesitated, then reached forward and hugged her. Just long enough to acknowledge the history, not long enough to relive it. She whispered, I love you. I didn't respond. I just let go. Outside, the world felt lighter. I crossed the street toward the park, early buds curling along the branches overhead. The air had that crisp smell of things trying again. I walked until the noise of traffic softened. Sat on a bench under a blooming elm and took out my phone. I opened the Notes app and typed. I came here as the daughter they discarded. I leave as the woman I chose. I saved it, then opened another note. I am no longer part of a story I didn't write. The puddle near my shoes reflected me back clearly. No distortion this time. Then, a buzz in my hand. A new text. Looks like we go live Monday. Ready, Gideon Pierce? I smiled faintly. For once, I didn't hesitate before saving it.